Welcome to Getting Real with John Natali. I'm your host, John Natali. And today, guys, we have an unbelievable interview ahead. I can just feel it. I've been a big fan of this guy ever since, honestly, I signed up for TikTok. And he has absolutely blown up his personal brand. I think you're going to learn an insane amount from this episode. We're going to get tactical. We're going to get minute about what he does, how he's grown, his story. I'm excited to bring on Freddie Smith. Freddie, welcome to Getting Real.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. I've been seeing your stuff on TikTok for a while as well, so I'm excited to chat with you.
Absolutely. So let me give a brief rundown of who Freddie is. Again, I'm a huge fan of everything he's done. He was an actor for a little bit in Hollywood. He was on Days of Our Lives. He won a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Younger Actor. Let me run down how many followers this guy has. We have 555,000. I am rounding up just a little bit there for you. 555,000 on TikTok, 342,000 on Instagram, 53,000 subscribers on YouTube, and 176,000 followers to him and his wife's kind of creator account on Facebook. Freddie, 1.1 million followers between those four accounts. How does that make you feel?
It feels great. It's been quite the journey because I actually started creating content about 14 years ago. And then I started really taking it serious on the business end of really seeing where it could go around 2014. So I always like to bring that up for individuals that did not happen overnight. It's been consistent for about 10 years of posting, evolving, changing, from lifestyle to positivity to real estate to the economy. So I've had a lot of evolution. I'm just happy that I've been able to build a community over the years and be able to reach people. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's an unbelievable thing. And I think you started with something we're definitely going to talk about today. And that's how did you build it, right? Because a lot of people will say, oh, did he have just 2 or 3 videos pop off and that's how he got this huge following? I know it takes an insane amount of work. We're going to get into that. But I want to start with your story because this is for real estate agents, real estate professionals, mortgage professionals, business owners. Your story coming out of Hollywood, let's kind of start there. Obviously, you're on Days of Our Lives. You're coming out of Hollywood and you decide to get into real estate. Tell me a little bit about that transition or what that all looked like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated high school in 2006 and I knew I didn't want to go to college. We didn't have social media and podcasting back then where you were learning about entrepreneurship and sales like you are today. Like the young generation has so much access to a different path. If you're a millennial watching, you either worked in the trades or you went to college. That was about it. And I didn't want to go to either one of those. And I ended up falling in love with acting my senior year of high school. I said, let me give this a try. 3 weeks after graduating high school, I drove out to Los Angeles from Ohio, and I spent 15 years there. And my claim to fame, I did maybe 12 or 15 projects, but if anyone recognizes me, it's probably from Days of Our Lives. I spent about 10 years on that show. It was a really great chapter in my life. But during my acting days, I would see my friends who were way more famous than me on billboards, A-list films, television shows, making tons of money, who were on top of the hill. And then it just went quiet for 2 years. And then they went back to serving tables or living on a friend's couch. So in the back of my mind, around 2014, I said, I can't rely on this acting gig forever because it's kind of out of my hands. You have to have a little bit of luck. And I started building on the side. I found social media. I started doing sales and marketing, but I always knew I wanted to do something else. I feel like I got my creative fill through acting and now I was ready to do something else. And when the pandemic hit, it was kind of the sign because my wife and I were stuck in a $3,000 apartment in LA. Everything was locked down. We're burning cash. And we're like, we've always wanted to move to Florida. Let's just go there. Her dad just got transferred out of all places to Orlando for his job. So her sister moved. So the whole family's there. We drove cross country. The first 3 months were great. We were building content full time, but then it was like, we need something else. And we both have always been interested in real estate. I've always just loved sales and marketing. My wife actually loves like architecture. She loves design. Like she's a more like cookie cutter. You'd cast her as a real estate agent in like a movie. My thing was the working with individuals, no ceiling on income, creating kind of your own schedule, but then the sales aspect. So she was the first one to get her license. And when I promoted her on social media saying, hey, everyone, my wife just got her license. Anyone looking to buy or sell in Orlando, hit her up. And granted, this is when interest rates were 3%, but we got a ton of leads and we got our first few sales within the first couple months. And I go, I should probably get my license because I'm limited legally on what I can do. So I went and got my license so that we could both start promoting and start building the business together. But out of necessity of restarting our life, we had to choose a career. And I was like, real estate's going to be the thing because selling Florida real estate is awesome because it's always beautiful here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I love that Orlando area. So tell me what that. So it almost was my next question of how soon you started to get business, but tell me what those first few months are. You after you got licensed. So your wife got licensed. You're pouring obviously leads into her. She's closing deals, but now you get licensed. What does that start to look like for you?
Yeah, we just were able to amp it up. I started to be able to make more direct real estate content. Before, again, I not being a realtor, I couldn't really do much. So once I was able to get my license, I just started pumping out more content and then just, sifting through leads. And I think in our first year, our first 12 months of both of us doing it, we did about 5 million in sales, which wasn't too shabby considering that most of it was just through social media. But yeah, we would just get that. We'd have the leads. We started learning the area. We became an expert in just about a 5 mile radius. When I was new, I did do a few properties about an hour and a half away and drove 3 hour round trip every day because you want to get, the sales and experience. So I'm glad I did it. But now fast forward 2.5, 3 years later, I like to just stick in a 5 mile radius because I'm an actual expert. I know all the HOAs, property managers, like my little section. But yeah, I just build into it. We found a great brokerage, and I'm just having a blast. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, it's obviously I've been in real estate 16 years, and I graduated high school a year after you, so we're about the same age, and it is an unbelievable career for everything you just listed. And what I love about it right now is, by all intents and purposes, you and I are typical average people that can use social media content creation to draw in all these people and literally build a huge business from it. And that's what's like wild about, like, if you were to get in 2014 when you were acting, like, the best ways to do it were picking up the phone and calling nonstop, knocking on doors, running a bunch of events for your past clients once you had them. You're kind of limited now with social media. There's so much opportunity, and that's what I want to spend a good chunk of our conversation talking about, because you built such a big thing out of it and you're still big. Like, it wasn't, you sometimes come across these people on social media, they have 200,000 followers, but then you go and look at their last 10, 15, 20 videos and they have, the same 500 to 900 views. When I look at you now, it's like one out of every five videos goes to at least a million, sometimes crazily over. And I think it's a testament to you always pivoting. So let's kind of get into content. That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So obviously you'd use social media prior to getting into real estate. But what made you think it was going to be a great strategy for getting business, other than maybe it was that first just throwing up that your wife got her license and you should contact her, and that resulted in people reaching out? But what kind of made you say, like, you're going to do your style of video to get clients?
Well, it's twofold, and this is important for anyone who's building content in any business. The reason I had confidence in it is because we had been building a brand for 8 years leading up to real estate. So when I posted it, it wasn't some random person in Utah or New York that goes, "Here's a realtor, I want to buy a house." It was people who were following us for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 5 years. Our very first listing appointment was from a woman who watched my wife and I's podcast for 5 whole years, knew us very well. We went through our journey. Her daughter was selling a home in Orlando and hit her daughter up and said, "You have to give Freddie and Alyssa a shot." And we took a meeting and we ended up getting our listing. So it was from a referral from someone who watched our content for 5 years. So that's also very important, because I think a lot of real estate agents also go, "I'm just going to start an Instagram or TikTok, do a house tour, and I'm going to get a bunch of clients." You have to build a community of individuals who are real estate agents, mortgage lenders. You're giving value, but building a brand so people can get to know you. So I think that was the reason that I was, confident at first, is that I knew we had a lot of people following us. But I did have to pivot to real estate because a lot of things we did was lifestyle. And I think this is a very, very important thing for people to know as well. I did have an advantage of being on a television show where you're going to get followers. So from when I first started Instagram until spring of 2023, so 1 year ago, My Instagram for 8 years of being on the show, I had 60,000 followers on Instagram. From the pandemic until last spring, I did not grow on Instagram because everybody who was going to follow me from Days of Our Lives had already followed me. I was doing lifestyle. People didn't really care about what I was doing other than the fans who've been following me. And I knew I needed to make a pivot. But because the algorithms have changed, thank God, from follower based to interest based, you can post content and it will go to the people who are interested. So I made that switch to real estate, talking about the boomers, talking about the interest rates, talking about conventional loans, FHA loans, just my whole experience of conversations I was having with my clients. And it started to gain some traction. But from last year, I had about 200,000 on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And now I've grown that to nearly 1 million over the past 12 months. So I think that's very important for newbies to know, because if you are starting out, I've been doing this for 10 years. There's never been an easier time to grow a following and a brand than it is today, because the algorithms are based on interest based, not your followers. Because the followers is kind of a vanity metric, a little bit of a clout thing. It's cool, but your quality of video is what matters. So if you have 70 followers, you can still get 3 million views. That was impossible 8 years ago. So times have changed, and I just happened to line it up very, perfectly, but I'm not taking it for granted. I'm very grateful every day that I continue to have a platform to talk on.
Absolutely. And that was you literally went into my next question of where you started, right? When you went into like the real estate content, and because I've seen that over the last year, right? Like I probably started following you a little over a year ago, I would say, at least, before I went all in on TikTok, which was June 1st, 2023 is when I did. And it's remarkable to see what you've grown, even because even though you had, I don't even want to call it a leg up, but because you had somewhat of a following already, that doesn't mean you're going to just generate success when you pivot your content, right? Like
True.
it's not that easy for people. So for me, I like hearing that, okay, we were at a certain level, but we literally almost 5x'd it, right, in a year, and have blown up on every platform, not just one. So that's really cool. What was your first, so like outside of lifestyle stuff you're doing beforehand, because I want to keep this into real estate, what was your first real estate video that absolutely blew up where you're like, whoa?
It was what one was it? I think it was comparing 1980 to 2023. I was having a conversation or there was two videos actually. So I was having a conversation with a client who a year ago, I can't remember when it was, but I remember he was qualified with $80,000 as a salary. Then he went through a divorce, came back to us a year and a half later, still making 80K and could no longer qualify. And I remember being like, oh, what just happened? Talked to the lender. He explained everything when it came to the interest rates. And I started digging into that myself. And I made a video where I go, this is new. For the first time in the last 50 years, the median household income cannot afford the median house. And that kind of took off. I think it maybe got like 1 million views. Then I was at a barbecue about a couple weeks later, and there was someone from the boomer generation that goes, stop complaining about the interest rate increase. We had 13% interest rates back in the 80s. You guys are just, complaining. And I go, well, let me just do the math on that. So I started doing the math, and I go, even with 13% interest rates, the median income could qualify for the median house. And so I made that video, and that one hit 5 or 6 million. And then from that point, I just started answering comments with videos. So anytime someone would ask me something, I would just start making those videos. And then I just stayed consistent because, again, with 10 years of experience, having this kind of momentum, I just went all in. So for the first 3 or 4 months of my virality, I was doing 2 to 3 videos a day and just being consistent because I wanted to continue to capitalize and grow. But it was those 2 videos that really made a splash, that pointed me in the right direction, which I'm happy.
Yeah, and what were you feeling on the inside? Like as those, because I remember like my first few that like absolutely popped off, and it's like very odd. Now you'd been in social media for a while, but like especially with like TikTok and Instagram, when they go viral, it's really crazy. What were you feeling?
Well, I was a few things. Number one, I was very, very excited because I always wanted to switch my content to some sort of business, sales, commentary. And the reason for that is because I did lifestyle for so long, but then your entire life becomes about having your phone. If you go to Disney, you're doing vlogs. If you're going to the grocery store, I love where I'm at now, where I come in my office, I work for 2 hours or 8 hours, depending on the day, and then I can turn my phone off and go live my life. I love that I can do my content that's not really about Freddie. It's just about commentary, which I absolutely love. So it showed me that I could do that, which was great. But the other thing, this is where it gets kind of crazy. That's when YouTube beta started, or it started in February of last year, but it was also monetized. So between those two videos, I think I brought in about $5,000 in ad revenue. So I was like, holy crap, this is dope. I can actually build my brand, talk about real estate, generate leads and sales, and get paid while doing it. I'm going to go all out. So that gave me the extra motivation to go, it's worth it every day to go sit there and do 2 to 3 videos because I'm going to get paid and generate leads and sales for my business.
Absolutely. And we are going to get to the income streams that come from having a massive personal brand, because that's such a huge part of it. Like when I tell people, TikTok last month paid my mortgage, right? And you're way above that. But for me as a smaller creator, I am driving so much business to myself, all the agents at my company across the country. And at the same time, I'm getting paid to do so is absolutely nuts. So I'm excited to have that conversation about just like all the income streams that kind of come from it, right?
Yeah.
For someone who hasn't seen you, and I think that's probably rare if they're watching this or listening to it, but if they haven't seen you, describe your style of content, because I think this is important too. Like, what is your typical video?
Well, I would say, I guess you would call it maybe talking head, or I'm starting to call it maybe commentary, where I do a lot of green screen. And the reason I like green screen is that when you're creating content and you can have a third party tool to help validate what you're saying, it becomes more, you're sharing facts and statistics and educating people more than an opinion piece. Sometimes I love being able to point, if I'm talking about Social Security or I'm talking about interest rates, I like going to Forbes.com, or I like looking at the labor statistics or the census.gov and pointing to these numbers, because it gives proof to back up what I'm saying and it kind of moves the video along. But yeah, mine's more straight to camera. I did skits back in the day. I did some comedy stuff like we talked about, lifestyle. But now what I love doing is just talking head, straight to camera, get to the point, have a conversation, answer questions. But I always have education on my mind. If I'm making a video to educate the end user on a piece of information that I have found exciting. And so that's what I focus on, is how can this piece of content educate someone on the other side who's going to see it? And that's what I try to really put something great together for about a minute and a half.
Yeah. And would you say you've stuck with the same style from starting? Like, let's put the starting point into real estate, right? When you started those first few videos about the boomer difference, the median income doesn't add up, has it been the same type of video since then?
Yes, that's when it took off in a different way. But my first year and a half of posting real estate, I did house tours. I did green screens of like, here's the deal of the day. I think I might have done one of those. Maybe that was just an idea I had. But I was doing a lot more random stuff. I was doing a lot more house tours, especially if we had a listing. I would do music and do the house tour. But once it kind of blew up after those two, I stuck to that, not really on purpose, but it just kept working. And I started to feel comfortable. It's what I loved. Because I don't know if you've done house tours, but they work well, but what a pain in the ass. It takes like 4 hours. You got to get dressed. You have to make sure there's no noise. You're sweating. And again, for efficiency, anyone who does house tours full time, to do 3 house tours a day, even one a day, is going to kill you. But for me to do a green screen and go, hey, the interest rates are up, here's the good and bad news about that, it's a little more efficient. So I kind of just decided to go where the attention was and stuck to what my strong suit is. But even my wife, after seeing my success, she's like, gotta do the house tours, gotta do the house tours. And I'm like, all right, babe, I'll help you. But it's more time consuming. So I kind of balance the efficiency of it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I would definitely agree. It's a lot easier, right? And I saw a lot of your content and I kind of just said, okay, let me just sit here and talk and educate because I have all this experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think that makes it so much easier. But there's a fear factor with that, right? Like, it's easier to a certain degree. So what we've done is, I did talking head for a long time, very similar, right? Then, some of the agents that I coach across the country started in walkthrough tours, and like not necessarily just the walkthrough tour, like putting themselves in it. I have a great agent out in Vegas who kind of like really started that up in December of last year and absolutely blew up when he was coaching with me. And so we enveloped a little bit into our, Jersey Shore real estate here, and it blew me up as well. Now, I was only doing maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 a week on top of, again, all the talking head stuff I was doing. But it became so valuable that now I only do it for our listings. So you have to list with our company to get on my TikTok and my social media. Now, some of the agents at my company still go out and film other listings, but I won't. So it does become valuable if you build it out, but yeah, it takes so much time. Like I was going out Saturday mornings, Thursday afternoons, like just running around trying to get the consistent content. On top of it, now your market might be different because Orlando has some new construction. Here in New Jersey, there's no new construction. So like it's all resale. You got to go into owners' homes and like, so you have to find vacant houses. Otherwise, you're totally inconveniencing someone to get out of
Yeah.
their house. But it becomes something tangible if you build it out. But I totally agree that there's a factor, though, of why people start with house tours or other stuff. And I think it's fear, right? Do you think your experience in Hollywood, being on camera, do you think that helped you get over that fear of just putting your face out there, however you look, however you're talking, and just talk?
Yeah, I think that's an advantage. I mean, I've been, being in front of camera since 2005 when I started in high school. So that's nearly 20 years. So for me, and I also went through the paces. I went through the negative comments, the positive comments, being an actor. And you have to adjust yourself. If someone's never created content and has been a realtor for 15 years and now they're putting themselves to the public for the first time, you have that hump to get over. How do I look? How do I sound? Do I feel comfortable? Who are these negative comments? Like it eats away at you till you get used to it. But I promise if you stick with it, you could like you eventually just don't care. Like it doesn't affect you at all. But yeah, being comfortable putting yourself out there and being consistent. If you dedicate yourself to putting out one video Monday through Friday, within 3-4 weeks, you're going to be really good at it because you're in the rhythm. If you do one a week, you're always going to kind of be rusty. So I always share with people, I'm like, post, every, Monday through Friday. But I definitely think it helped. And then just to touch on one other thing too, that you mentioned about the house tours, I also think it depends on what your objective is. I think at the very beginning, my objective was still heavy, heavy real estate because that's where the biggest chunk of income was coming from. So I was very cognizant that I'm making videos and educating, but I need to talk about real estate because I'm trying to generate leads as quickly as possible. House tours do that more for real estate. But when things started to shift for me and opportunity and income came from other places, my priority shifted slightly different. So it's why I kind of stepped away from house tours because I was looking for the growth, the virality, the numbers, and what would work and add to the conversation. So I think there's just kind of a two-way street there. I think realtors should do both. While you're still having real estate sales and that's your number one objective, do house tours once, twice, 3 times a week, and then do talking heads the other 3-4 times a week so that you can balance it and you can earn income from both.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And so, a couple other tactical questions that I kind of just had personally. Number one, do you do all this stuff yourself?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And because I know the talking head stuff, the green screen stuff is really easy. So again, guys, over 1 million followers on those 4 platforms, and he does everything himself. Like to do this, you don't need a whole production team. I think the biggest mistake I see people make is simply coming out with this like very high end looking product that they probably hired a videographer for that doesn't connect, right? Because
Yeah.
the person on social media now wants real. Like they want something real. They don't want the, Instagram of 2015 or 2016, polished, filtered photos. Like they actually crave real. And you're looking at if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you're looking at 2 people that have done this without any sort of high production value and have grown a lot in the last year. So I think that's a huge part of it. It's not necessarily you have to do it yourself, but that you don't necessarily need the whole production value in order to
It's
succeed.
it's the message. It's the quality of the content, and there's something really cool about just being yourself. Authenticity is at the top of the charts. Now there's definitely a fine line between how professional you want to be and how authentic you want to be, right? Like I always tell people, you're not faking it, but if you're going to go to a listing appointment, you're going to bring a different energy than you would if you're sitting on the couch with your wife. So that on social media, bring the energy you would to a listing appointment to your video, but be real, be authentic, be real. And that's why even for me, like I love wearing like a baseball cap. I just kind of have, it just, again, kind of happened how it happened, but it's a It's just the brand that I built. I just want to show people too that's like, hey, I'm going through this with all of you. This is what we're doing. And every now and then it's cool to have a high production kind of video. But yeah, don't be afraid just to pull out your camera and talk, share stories. Especially like you said, dude, 16 years. You know, the realtors out there with 25 years experience, they're the ones that should be on social media every day. You have so many stories.
I know.
Oh my God.
I can't tell you how many people I meet, because I'm still like, I tell people this too. Now, down in Orlando, there's probably quite a few that are creating content, right? But here, where I am at the Jersey Shore, New Jersey, it's a very high end market, very low inventory, very hard to get transactions. Just a really tough market right now. And I tell people, it blows my mind that I am still the only person that not is huge on social media. There's other people that have either YouTube channels, Instagram, but like I am the only person in our area that does TikTok to the level in which I do. And there is never been an opportunity in my 16 years and probably an all time in real estate that you could be in front of people every damn day on their phone for free and be the only person that they are watching. Like there's zero competition. So, and even in very saturated markets, maybe there's 10. But if you can't like compete against 10 people, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah. And you're going to find your people. You know, even
Absolutely.
if there's 10 people in Orlando and someone from New Jersey is like, I'm moving to Orlando. I want to, look around Instagram and TikTok. They might like my personality or not, and they'll go with someone else or go with me. But putting content out, you're going to find your people. You know what it's like getting a lead on social media. It's the most beautiful thing ever. If you do a Zillow lead, you have to use your tone of voice, build a rapport very quickly. Like they don't know you. They don't know your handshake, how you're dressed. They don't know anything about you. On social, if someone watches you for 4 weeks, 4 months, or 4 years, that phone call is beautiful because the rapport has already been built. Now you just get to ask them questions, but they trust you and you don't have to be a salesperson. You can just have an honest conversation. So even the leads from social are a gift. They're
Yeah.
so comfortable.
It's completely changed. Now, it's the reason I went all in on it, right? Because I saw people like yourself, I saw other big creators. I was like, if they can do this with with what the style they're doing, I can definitely make this efficient. I can do it. And now, again, it was a great thing, but it was also probably my detriment as well. Like 2020, 2021, we made so much money as a team that I didn't give a shit. Like, I didn't care about social media. Like, I was on it. I used it for my sphere. Like I was on Instagram putting stories up. I was signed up for TikTok. I think I put a video out once every 3-4 weeks, right? Nothing crazy. But as the market started to shift as the leader, because I also opened my company in 2022 and I was stepping out of production, not completely out, but stepping down, like rather than going from selling 50, 60 houses a year, my goal is now it's about 12, but at the time it was like 18 to 24. You have to replace the income somehow, right? And also the time. So I said, all right, this seems like this is going to be the future. And then once I went all in on it, and it happened pretty quick that I grew, I was like, okay, awesome. I just went to a seller's house we're filming this on Wednesday. Last Friday, I went to a listing consultation. I walked in the door. This is from TikTok. These people absolutely, from what they said, were like huge fans of mine. I walk in the door and they said, I can't believe I'm actually meeting you in person. And, we're going to talk about selling their house and buying a house over here at the shore. And they go, I can't believe we're actually meeting John in person. And he looks at his wife. He goes, all of our family is such huge fans of yours. We share your videos back and forth. We do all this stuff. Do you mind taking a selfie with us before so we can send it to our cousins? Guys, I'm not on a billboard. I'm not even Freddie. I was never on a show, right? Like I would figure you've had that interaction in your life. But for me, as someone who's just been a real estate broker, living my life, doing my own thing, it is wild the connection that people have through social media and the power and how easy those leads are. Because what I tell them, and not in like a controlling way, but because you're the expert that they believe, whatever you tell them, they kind of go with. So they're not the type of clients, even once you get them, which is very easy, they believe you and like they trust you. So like
Yeah.
when you say, hey, this inspection item isn't that big of a deal, but you should ask for this one to be repaired. They're like, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Rather than
Yep.
fighting you tooth and nail, like the FISBO or the Expire lead or the Zillow lead or Realtor.com lead, like that is a little bit uncertain because you're a real estate agent. They absolutely love you.
Yep.
And that's a game changer, right?
Oh my God. 100%. Because the trust is there. And especially like how the content that you make too is very educational. And that's what people want. And that's what I always share with people as well who are in real estate. It's like, just make your content educational because the people watching it, if they watch one of your videos and go, huh, I didn't know that. Now you're building that trust with them. The more you educate, the more they're going to trust. And I think, do you see that a lot on your end as well, of getting people away from using it as a sale, like a sales funnel? Like I feel a lot of people when they first start, they go, here's a house for sale. Here's my numbers. Like it's always a commercial rather than a piece of education. And it's like making that shift is really going to help.
100%. Once you, because I obviously have the two accounts, right? I have my consumer facing account, then I also have my agent facing account for my coaching company and the real estate brokerage that we have here in New Jersey. And both accounts, though, I don't do the same type of content by any means, but it's a very similar strategy per se, and it's just to not give away everything 100%, but give away like 98% of whatever's in my brain as education. Keep a
Hmm.
couple nuggets for myself, right? So there's some value, like if you come and work with us, right? Like if you buy a house with us, sell with us, you're gonna get that last little bit. Same thing on the agent side. Like if you come into our coaching program, you're gonna get everything that I'm giving out plus a whole lot more realistically. And it's just, I don't know, a lot of people, it's kind of back to like the Gary Vee style, right? Gary Vee was always big, like how he blew up was just giving away all this business advice, right?
Yep.
And it works. Educating people, you become a higher trust factor, and then when people want to work with you, they work with you. And
Yeah.
you're literally hitting so many people, and they're literally watching you every day, and that's what's the power of it too. So one other tactical question before we move on, because I again, this is a personal question for me, and I'm not sure about it now that I'm actually talking to you one on one. But do you speed up your videos when you are talking?
No.
So you just naturally talk that quick?
Yeah, I'm usually trying to keep the momentum going, but a lot of the times I'm talking, I have done videos in the past that are a minute and 50 seconds and they don't fit on Instagram. And I go, how the hell am I going to cut 20 seconds off? So I just try to keep to the point and go, like, even one I filmed before this podcast today, I had a lot to say. So I would kind of move it along a little bit and just make sure to take my beats when I wanted a point to really hit home. But yeah, I try to move through the video just to make it, quick, efficient, and to the point.
That makes sense, and definitely about efficiency. But it seems like when I watch some of your videos, I'm like, he either talks extremely quick, and not in like a bad way, because it is super engaging. There's no breaks, right? There's literally like when your sentence ends, the next sentence starts. However, still when you're talking, and I think that helps. Again, I don't think it looks like it's 2x speed, right? It doesn't look unnatural, but it wouldn't surprise me if you said, "Hey, I sped it up a little bit, like 1.1x,"
Yeah.
just a little bit, just to get that engagement really, really on top of it
I think
as
I
well.
think it's the style as well, because there are some videos, like there was a lady that we were talking to yesterday, and she is a real estate agent, and she did a story of things to look out for when buying a beach condo. But the style of the video was her sitting at her desk, taking her time and telling a story. And I feel some piece of content you need to let breathe. But I think if you're doing green screen and cutting to the point, Social Security's this is what it was, this is what it actually is, and here's what it is. I think my style, I like to just move it along. But if I'm going to share a story, then I will take my time and make it feel a little more like a FaceTime. And I'm starting to experiment a little bit with long form video too, which I'm letting the ideas breathe a little bit, which is creatively filling me up again. Because if you have a lot to say in a minute, if I could actually like take my time and talk for 5. So I've been starting to do a little more long form as well to dive deeper and take my time.
Yeah, so I saw the one video you did, at least horizontal, on TikTok yesterday. I think it was on YouTube as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, on YouTube, I'm very aware that long form YouTube pays the highest RPMs. So I'm trying to, because I've really tackled the short form and I've been getting a lot of engagement, and I want to see if I can start rolling that into the long form on YouTube. Because even with the talks of TikTok, which I don't think would go anywhere, but I think it's important to have multiple platforms built and multiple streams of income to be able to have built. So I'm now making long form video for YouTube, and I want to build that algorithm as well. And you can even put the long form video in your short. So you can add it to your short. So if you do a 1 minute video about how are millennials and Gen Z going to retire, and it's 1 minute, you can add your long form video in the video that people can click on to watch the big one. But then I also like putting it on TikTok. So this way I'm not making it just for YouTube long form, but I can also throw it on TikTok long form as well. And
Yeah,
it performed pretty well for being that long. I think it had pretty good numbers. I was very pleased with it.
yeah, especially because you have to realize too, it's like some of my better performing videos, you get 10, 20% full watch. Like that's pretty good, right? But if you have a long video that's 6, 7 minutes, that's why sometimes those longer walkthrough tours with agents in them, they perform so well because if people actually watch a 7 minute video full through, that is so powerful for your business, right? Like we're talking about the quick style, a minute to a minute and a half. That's where people's attention spans usually fall, right? But
Hmm.
if you're able to keep their attention, you have a 6 minute video and 10% of people out of 50,000 watch it. That's insane.
Yeah. That's how you build depth too. Because the
Exactly.
person who watches you for 7 minutes will more likely hit you up or refer you because they're spending so much time. Someone who spends 12 seconds with you and moves on, even 30 seconds. That's why even I put my call to actions, which are, I do very rarely, but I put them usually at the end because I go, anyone who's made it this far is more likely to go and click on my profile to go do this than the first 3 seconds. You
Makes
need to
sense.
build that along the journey.
Yeah, that's great. And then so let's dive into the little like mental health aspect of this, if you don't mind, because you have created content for so long, you've been in Hollywood, when a video is not performing well, because this is what happens to some people, or like you have a spell where like 2, 3 weeks, like content, like the views are down or something hasn't popped off. Does that affect you at this point?
Not at this point, just because again, I've gone through the roller coaster of it all, and it's just being consistent and doing what you want to do creatively, because that's what happens too as you start growing. I was really like, me and my wife had a podcast for 5 years. We did about 500 episodes, and we just hit like a wall where I go, we need to take a break. Like I just wasn't creatively filled up by it anymore. So on short form content, you want to stay creatively engaged. So I always tell people, pick the kind of content. Like if like I don't genuinely, like we talked about, I don't really love doing house tours. I'll do them, but I love doing my green screen videos. So as a creator, kind of figure out what you love and what you want to do. So this way for me, I'm just hitting my daily minimums. I want to do one a day. That's quality that I'm putting out that I feel good about. And regardless if you get 4 million or 4,000, I'm just moving on to the next day and doing it again. So it's taken work to get through that, but it's just the daily discipline. It's like weighing yourself every day. You can't. You just got to just do the workout and move along, and the results will come. So just focus on a daily discipline and hit your mark, but give yourself a schedule that you can keep. Don't get all pumped up and go, I'm going to create content. I'm going to do 3 a day, 7 days a week. I'm like, no, you're not. Start off Monday through Friday and see if you can do that for 6 months in a row with never missing a day, Monday through Friday. Then, if you think you can move to 7 days, then if you can think you can move to 2 times a day. But I always say, give it 3 to 6 months, Monday through Friday. And your entire goal is to create content you're proud of and put it out, and don't worry about the results because you're learning and you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, it's the Mr. Beast get to 100 videos, right? Realistically, that's
Yeah.
when I started in June of last year. So I have the two accounts that I wanted to grow, and I committed to 2 videos 7 days a week, 2 videos a day, 7 days a week on both accounts. So it's 4 videos a day. Now I will tell you, last summer wasn't the funnest time of my life, but I knew I had to get good at this. And then it probably took 45 days, right? Like for a month and a half there, I was doing this and I was like, damn, the views are still like 200 to 500. Oh, one popped off and got to 8,000, right?
Yeah.
And then I did one stitch about, I think it was the golden handcuffs one that went to like 6 or 700,000. And I was like, wow, okay. And then it just started growing and growing and growing from there. But yeah,
Yep.
sticking with it in the beginning and getting to that 100 videos. That's what I coach around a lot of people that are new. I just say, I don't care what it looks like. You're literally throwing stuff against the wall right now. Don't worry. Like, make it good enough for you, but don't make it perfect. Because if you sit there and try to make it look exactly like Freddie Smith's videos, 100% the same style, the same sound, everything, you're going to run yourself ragged. He's done this for years, right? And that's a powerful thing for somebody who's starting out or has gotten a little bit burnt out by it.
Yeah. You got to be you.
100%. What do you do when you do feel a little bit burnt out, like on the creative side? Because this has happened to me. It's happened to other top creators that I coach. Sometimes you put in time, you put in so much energy. Videos are performing well, but you still feel like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do, I've taken 2 week break before, and this was basically after my rise. I just needed 2 weeks where I didn't even go on anything. I just go, I need a break. I need to be refreshed and re-inspired. But if I'm going to have like a 3 days off or I'm not in the mood, I have a desktop folder of all my videos. So if something I posted, like today, I'm going to do a repost. And it's a video I made on January 27th about the 1980 minimum wage. And it's still relevant today. So I re-edited it and I'm going to post it. But if I take a few days off, I'll just repost and re-edit old videos so that I can take a break making them. Editing, I always love. But I went and visited my parents in Ohio for 5 days, and I just got on my laptop, re-edited a couple videos and posted, but I never filmed at my parents' house, but I kept the videos going with relevant topics. So don't be afraid to repost your videos. Just make slight edits to them so they're not the same, and save some. So if you want to take 4 days off, you still got 4 videos to post.
That's great advice. And I think one of the things I definitely tell people to do as well is don't be afraid to like almost like that. This is in a different case, right? But if you're feeling like not necessarily burnt out, but like just like creatively, you don't know of a great idea, go back to your great performing videos. I literally just did this on a video that was the millennial wealth difference between elder millennials and younger millennials. And then in December, that video popped off. I think it went to like 600,000. Did well on Instagram as well. All I did was literally change. I reshot the video in a different scene. I think I was in my studio that first time. I did it in my kitchen this time. And I literally put up the same video and it doubled, right? And I had 3 or 4 news outlets reach out to me after it. And it's the exact same video. I think I even kept the same hook. Like it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so like creatively, you don't have to come up with anything, but if TikTok has told you when you had 1,000 followers that this video got to 1 million and did really well, 2 or 3 months later, if it's still relevant, I think that was a great thing you said, Freddie. If it's still relevant, put it back up. Even you could keep the same video if you save it, obviously. But if you didn't, then creatively, you don't have to sit here and come up with ideas or go to ChatGPT for ideas. Like you have it right in front of you. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, they already told you this is a great idea. Just recreate it now with your new following.
You can reshoot it, especially if the information changes a little bit. Like sometimes the interest rate will change and I'll have this great video and I'm like, oh, it's not 8% interest rates anymore.
Yeah.
And you can always remake it to the current interest rate. But I think people's fear of reposting is they're still stuck in the 2016 Instagram algorithm that they go, my friends are going to see the same video. No one's seeing the same video. The people watching your video, 99%, especially on TikTok, are complete strangers who don't follow you.
I know.
It's new people. And you'll be surprised. Like, and another thing you mentioned too, I wanted to comment on. For people who are brand new and you might be a little afraid, you don't have a following yet. This is the time you can try everything because only 200 or 1,500 people will see it. When you actually build a brand and you're like, I'm probably going to get 1 million views on this. That's a different mindset too, because you're like, first of all, I got to make sure this is accurate. I got to triple check 5 different websites to make sure this is right because people will eat you alive if you're wrong. So it keeps you accountable. But when you're new, just have fun and throw it out there and see what sticks because you don't have the viewership yet. But even when you do have the viewership, you have to go, do I like this? Is this what I want to do? And I just post once a day. I just stick to it, whether it's viral or not. You just stick to it. But it's a journey. I love it. I love content creation. I think it's so fun to express yourself with no gatekeepers. Because in Hollywood, you had to go through 20 people for them to put you on camera. Here, you can have an idea, write it, produce it, talk, put it out, and the market decides if it's good or not. It's awesome. So I'd encourage people to start posting.
Absolutely. We have a little bit of time left. I've quite a few questions left. So let's dive into, obviously you have a love for it, but also I'm sure it's helping provide for you and your wife. So let's talk about the income streams that come from having a massive personal brand. So obviously there's real estate. I'm figuring there's brand deals. I'm figuring there's creator fund, YouTube beta. Now if you're not comfortable sharing personal information, but give me a snapshot of what that looks like for you, your wife, her brand as well, and what that brings you on a comfort level.
Yeah, I think again, it has changed over time. So we started creating content from 2014 to 2017. We were actually in network marketing, and a lot of the business that we built was through social media. So we were generating sales, but there wasn't ad revenue, brand deals, or anything, but it was building a team and selling. But in 2018, we started a podcast. We started getting our first brand deal. You'd start getting like free hotel stays, which was super cool. But I built for probably 4 or 5 years without making any money. Then our podcast, we started getting sponsors and making money. And I would say 2018, 2019, we might have made 20 or 30,000 through brand deals and sponsorships. And then we kept that going through the pandemic. But then once the beta program came for TikTok, it's been incredible. The affiliate marketing is incredible. When you having affiliates, sponsorships, brand deals, I'm very picky on brand deals though, because, at this point, I don't want to sell out unless it's a like significant amount of money or it's a brand that I can educate someone. Like if I can make a video that educates somebody and this is a platform that can help them. But if it's some of the things I get, I'm not just going to hawk a product. So that kind of hurts sometimes to pass like thousands of dollars up, but I believe in the long run. But yeah, the ad share is probably the biggest, and then the affiliate marketing, and then just the opportunities in general. Like even I had a buddy reach out to me. He's a mortgage lender. There's 2 other mortgage lenders and myself. So there's 4 of us, and we're part of a consulting business called Leverage Socials. And the reason that company even exists and that we coach and consult is because we all knew each other on social media. We all live in different states. But now that's another source of income that came by just producing short form content. Exactly. So I would say, yeah, there's probably like 6 or 7 different sources that come from it. And the best way that I like to look at it to inspire real estate agents too is creating your brand is kind of like door knocking, where every day you're going out and doing it. But imagine being paid $500 a day to door knock. That is what it is posting on social media. You're going to get leads and sales, but imagine making $500 or $1,000 a day or $100 a day, whatever it is, to promote your business. But that's kind of the journey I've gone on. It's just opened up so many opportunities, free press, and it's just been great. So I'm going to try to grow this, like some of the bigger creators have, to hopefully a 7-figure business one day.
Yeah, that's the goal. And the great thing, what I love about it is the fact that as a real estate agent, I talk about this in my agent facing account a lot, why I'm pushing so many people and why, our coaching has absolutely blown up in the last year, or actually not in the last year, the last 5-6 months since I started it, is it is nice for the first time in real estate, literally the first time in real estate, that you don't have to really rely on commissions. And now that sometimes gets people, like especially older people, like, oh, well, if you're going to just be a, content creator, go and do that. Don't sell real estate. But you could be an expert at something, have all these 4 or 5 income streams that were never really possible as an actual individual real estate agent, right? Like if you had, you were Ryan Serhant, right? And you're on $1 Million Listing. Absolutely, you have the opportunity. But if you're not one of those people, you now have an opportunity to have the ability to coach others. If you really blow up, you have the ability to get brand deals, affiliate marketing, paid by the platforms that you're creating on. So I think the example you gave about door knocking was great, and I'll probably have to use that with some of my coaching clients, because that's the truth, right? Like you were literally creating a massive business, but also like if I were to think like, hey, I'll pay you $10 a phone call to go and prospect FSBOs, and people just knew they had to call and call and call, God damn, they would call all day, right?
Oh, dude, $10, hell yeah, you can make $200 a day, and you're going to get a sale eventually.
No, exactly, and so that's the honest truth. Now, I have this question for you. At this point, do you and your wife consider yourselves real estate agents, realtors that create content, or do you consider yourselves creators that also can sell you real estate?
I always position myself, well, it's interesting because on the back end, I am a content creator who happens to do real estate, but in the real world, I'm a realtor who creates content. I think that's easier to digest. Even when I've been lucky enough to be on Fox News and in some of these things, to the rest of the world, content creators and influencers aren't real jobs. And I love having that real estate as the storefront, where it's like Fox News, we have realtor Freddie Smith here who had a viral video, rather than some guy who used to be an actor on a show who's an influencer who sells homes wants to weigh in on 8% interest rates. So I like to look at real estate as kind of my storefront. Even if people ask me, like I was at the airport and this woman's like, hey, what do you do for work? I'm like, I'm just going to say real estate, because if I say I'm a content creator, are you on YouTube or Facebook? It's just better to say real estate. And you never know, if you say real estate, they'll go, oh, I'm buying or selling, or my wife is buying or selling, or my daughter's buying or selling. So you're promoting your real estate business. So in my mind, I've always been a content creator who has all these different things, including real estate. But I kind of promote myself to the real world as real estate. And then I kind of do this on the back end, but it's slowly shifting just because of where I'm kind of at right now with the opportunity. Real estate's kind of slipping down a few notches in the sense of where I'm putting my energies. But, as you grow, you kind of, it's a luxury. Like real estate is a great business, especially if you don't have to take every deal.
100%.
When you're new, you're like, oh, this guy's being an a-hole to me, but I'm going to do it anyway. Or this person's out of their mind, but I'll take it anyway. Now, it's someone that I can really connect with. If I want to take it, I will. So it gives you a little more freedom where you're like, I have to do this sale or I can't pay my mortgage. That's how it was in acting. If I don't book this commercial, I can't pay my mortgage. It's not a good feeling. I like having multiple streams so that I can just be a real estate agent and not care and just do best by my client. And when the money's there, great. But I don't need it to live. It's a good place to be.
100%. That's exactly where I hope every real estate agent that wants to be successful by, let's say, 2027, that's where they're going to be, in my honest opinion. Like there might be a few that still just do real estate sales, but I think this whole like low inventory, low transaction environment is going to be around for a while. And if you can have all these different income streams, like it makes your life so much easier.
And also too, when you create content as a realtor or as a business professional, you're becoming a better real estate agent because you're doing heavy education, because you're learning to teach, not just learning to pass an exam or learning because a client might ask you. If I'm out with my client and they say, is the housing market going to crash? That's not the first time I've thought about it. I've made videos on it. I know how to hit 1, 2, 3, 4. When they say, well, wasn't the interest rates this? I actually know because of the research. So even doing content, not only for leads and opportunities, but you're becoming a more educated realtor yourself by producing content that you have to learn to teach is a different kind of learning. So I would encourage that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. So final few questions here, Freddie, and I appreciate your time so much.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. First one, what do you think drives you to succeed and also just have this creative aspect to yourself? Like what do you think drives you to succeed and create at such a high level?
I think creatively is what pushes me. I think being creative is what makes me happy. Even when I was an actor out in Hollywood, I have written 5 or 6 scripts with my buddies that we've never sold. But the journey on writing a script from start to finish and having funny dialogue, like being creative just fills my soul. And the fact that social media is here and you can now make a living being creative without the gatekeepers of Hollywood is just kind of a perfect timing. So, but yeah, creativity fills my soul. I just love being creative and I love educating.
That's awesome. And what would you say is next for Freddie Smith?
I think ramping up what I'm already doing and trying to figure out how to continue to bring it to the next level when it comes to my content, continuing to build the brand. And I'm in a very, very unique situation right now. And I've always dreamt of this for the 10 years of doing content. I am getting an unbelievable amount of opportunity. And now I'm sifting through what is the right move next. Book offers to, speeches, to brand deals, to building out different companies. And I've just kept my head down because I go, what's gotten me here is producing a video a day. And I don't want anything to get in the way of that. I want to keep building, but I'm just trying to navigate what is the best next move for me that I can continue to help people, be creative. But I also don't want something that's going to take up too much of my time or take me away of being a creative. I like waking up in the morning, puttering, making my content. And so I don't have a direct answer, but I know I just want to grow my brand and continue to help people with my content.
So politics is out of the question.
I mean, I've never really thought about it. I'm getting kind of excited just because I'm learning a lot about it, but I think it's a little too premature for that, but I have had a few people bring that up. But I think it'd be cool in the future because I would just like to do it in the way that I do not see anyone in politics being. Like, I don't see any politician just being real. Even the ones that are real on TikTok are playing a character of being real. They're still out of touch and they're fooling some. But I would just want to be just a real person that goes, hey guys, like how I do my videos, but that's how you are in politics. You're like, here's what this is. This is the problem. This is what we can pass. Here's why we can't. Not pointing fingers, but just educating instead of performing.
Yeah.
That's what all they do on mainstream media and all the politicians. They perform so that you will just go, okay. They don't educate where you can be a critical thinker. And I would like to, if I ever did move in that way, that would be my goal,
Yeah.
is to try to change the way politicians talk, where they educate and not perform.
Yeah. It makes sense. Like a real Jeff Jackson, not a fake one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With his, yeah.
But yeah, so no, that makes sense. And I only asked that because of the content that I make is pretty similar to you. There's a lot of political undertone with a lot of it, right? Talking about, and we're almost up on time, so I don't want to dive into this now. Maybe we'll have a conversation later about it. But
and I've got a few minutes, man. If you have a few minutes, I'm enjoying our talk. Don't feel, we can chat for a few more if you'd like.
Absolutely. So let's go down that road, right? There is a huge difference between the boomer generation, millennials, Gen Z. That's kind of what you highlight. And again, there's a lot of political undertone with that about the differences, the political reasons why. And because I put out so much content similar, not that people are running to my comments saying, hey, John, run for president by any means, but there's just so much like, well, what can we do politically about this? And you get a little bit of a voice in your head that says like, maybe I can make some of this change, right? But then it comes back to like, I just made a video about why this is such a political mess. And it's because successful people like us don't naturally want to ruin 50% of our lives, right? Like 50% of people, no matter what we do, if we say we are this party, another, or independent, are going to hate us. Once you make some sort of stand on your feelings, your beliefs, your family, now 50% of people hate you. And that just, when you're successful, it doesn't really draw the best people out. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have with politics today. But those issues that you bring up about the housing market, how it was fundamentally, and whether people agree or disagree, like when you break down the numbers, it was easier to be a boomer buying your first house, being in your 20s and 30s financially than it was or is for millennials and Gen Z. What kind of made that your message, right? Like what kind of drove you to be like, this is what I'm going to fight for and stand for?
I think it's just calling out people who are trying to get away with telling half truths. Just kind of bothers me because I'm so into the facts and the data of just looking at it, where I'm like, you can say that interest rates mattered in the 80s, but when you run the numbers, it's just not true. And I just want to show that. And the reason for showing it isn't to pick on the boomers. It's to say, what the hell happened over the past 40 years? Because you have an entire generation. Us millennials are kind of okay, but I feel like the Gen Zers are losing hope. Because even for us, or even for the boomers, think about how hard your life was and how challenging it was. But at least you could have kids and have a house that you were paying off and have a retirement to look forward to. We don't know if Social Security is going to be there. We can't buy a house. College is overpriced. The cost of groceries are high. And so people are like, what's the point of all this? And I'm always the type that when I become successful, as I've climbed the ladder, I always want to take people with me. And so I don't know why the rich people or the politicians, I'm not one of the eat the rich kind of guys.
No.
But I'm also starting to pay a lot more attention to it because I just don't understand, when you have that much money and power, why you're not doing more to help.
Yeah.
Because even if I go and make all this money, but then everywhere I go, the people who I'm interacting with on a daily basis are struggling, like the playground of all that I get to play in as a multimillionaire, but everyone on the ground is struggling, who is keeping the roads and the stores running. It just doesn't seem fair to me. Like everyone should be able to work and own a house and have kids. And so it just came out of the truth, really. I never knew I was passionate about it, but it just kind of pissed me off a little bit. And the more and more I see mainstream media and politicians telling half truths or spinning narratives, I just feel the need to call them out because I don't like that they think they get away with it. It's like, I don't care if you're right or left. If you say something untrue and I can prove it with facts on a green screen, I'm going to do that. And so I get kind of a pleasure out of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think I feel mostly the same way. And it's in some ways it's cool to have that opportunity, but it's bring it back to like the content and like the opportunity. Like again, the fact that you can just sit in front of your phone and so many people are buying into your message is just what's wild about it.
Yeah, dude, the shares has got to be my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Do you ever see when people share it to their stories on Instagram?
Yeah.
Like your reels and stuff? it's just the coolest thing because you're looking at the reach that you're getting. And I think that's the only reason in politics that there's like a little voice sometimes that I'm like, if you really look at the reach, Freddie, like if
Yeah.
you really got people behind you here, like you might be able to do something. But that's what I'm trying to work towards though, is actually finding the solution.
I know.
And you know what I mean? Like we're calling the problem out, but it's like, how do you get 5 million homes built?
You don't.
Give builders incentives, tax incentives. I mean, do you ever see them building 5 million homes and the institutional investors not continuing to eat them up?
No, and the issue too is even what I see down where you are, not necessarily Orlando, because Orlando is still doing pretty well, but areas of Florida, you're gonna start to see foreclosures tick up. There's a lot of inventory sitting there. Prices are coming down, a little bit from their peaks.
Yeah.
And I just read a report. Basically, BlackRock, all these other private equities are just going to wait. Prices are going to drop, and then they're not even going to go to foreclosure. Like they're not going to go to the mom and pop investors. The person like maybe like myself who wants to buy one or two investment properties out of sheriff sale. They're just going to buy them out, and so like
Yeah.
that insulates their investment even more, takes more homes off the market. So all these people waiting, I don't have to tell you, but like all these people waiting for a housing market to crash, any of that stuff, like it's not going to happen. There's too much money already in the system. So you're almost playing an endless game, in my opinion. That if you own a home, I think you're going to be fine. As a millennial, if you haven't bought until now, you're hopefully going to play the refi game over the next few years and get that rate a little bit lower. But yeah, there's a great book I just started. The guy just released it. I've seen quite a few of his TikTok and on YouTube about Gen Z. I think it's called The Anxious Generation. I'm hoping I'm getting the title right. I don't know if you're a reader, but it'd be a great book for you to read. And it's just about, in some ways, it's a little bad on the social media side, especially because we're creators and we're speaking to the problem. But Gen Z has a lot working against them, and the younger half of millennials. I was pretty fortunate to be in position to buy a house in 2020, but my house has doubled in value in 4 years, and interest rates 3 times what it was. It would literally cost me 3 or 4 times what it would have back then, right? And that's 4 years ago. I didn't buy the house in 1970. So
Yeah.
Gen Z coming into areas, New Jersey has a whole slew of problems because we don't build houses. A lot of the area that could be built was, preserved under green space for 100 years. So can't be built on ever again. We're growing in population. You have, a lot of immigration coming into the area, and it's swelling, and there's literally nowhere for all these people to go. And if you own a single family house, you're going to do great, but it's an issue. They're not going to be able to build enough houses. I work with a few attorneys that do a lot of like litigation on how many affordable housing units. This is different than Florida, but in New Jersey, they mandate how many need to be built, and they litigate with the towns. And so like all that's built are these condos, townhouses that people are kind of forced to, but they don't really want, right? Like people want a single family home, but all the land in New Jersey, at least, and in the, Northeast particular, is kind of taken up or preserved. So now you have this massive issue where property values, even at 8% interest rates, like the 4 or 5 deals we have under contract that are closing next week are all 100K plus over asking still. Like it's nuts. So how are you there really isn't a solution other than build more homes and figure out how to do so pretty quickly without them being terrible built homes and more issues that arise from it, right?
Yeah, and I'm also trying to figure out too, it's, why are the homes, so big? Like I don't mean like a tiny home community, but if you have these big juggernaut companies, they're still going to price it so damn high. But if we could have communities that are being built, but like you said in Jersey, they don't have the room for it.
I know.
So people are going to have to mass migrate, which is unfortunate because, someone like my wife and I, we could always move somewhere, but moving from LA to Orlando, we felt like we hit the lottery because things are so much cheaper here than it was LA. But people who are graduating, who are 22, they've got their friends, their boyfriend or girlfriend, they've got their parents, grandparents, everyone they know. What 23-year-old's going to pick up and move to Iowa and who knows no one just to get a cheap house and rebuild their life? So yeah, I don't know. There needs to be smaller homes because I did a video recently too going, okay, well, what if we accept that home ownership is now a luxury and Gen Zers have to rent forever? Well, then how do they retire if rents keep going up?
They don't, or they're 100% dependent on government, right? The government's going to like Medicare and Social Security is going to be bankrupt. So you're just going to be highly dependent on government. Could potentially be the downfall of society. No,
I mean, yeah, I and there's sometimes I think about it like that where I go, it can't really happen like that. But the more I break down the numbers, I'm like, well, I don't see anything else. The only thing else I can see is will these big companies start buying communities And just like we get health insurance through these companies, will we start get housing through these companies where you now get housed? A driverless bus comes, picks you up and brings you to work. And now you got your health insurance, your house through there. I mean, I don't know, but it just doesn't seem, I mean, for some people that might be great. You don't have to really, do much. You go to work, you can have some of the pleasures of life, but we're losing our independence and our freedom. And I think a lot of Americans want that. And so I think it's important that we keep making videos about it. I try to be positive, but I also think without people knowing the problem, like I even brought it up to my buddy the other day. I go, do you ever look at your paycheck? Do you know that you're getting more for the average American? You're getting more taking out in FICA than you are your effective federal tax rate. You're paying more to Social Security and Medicare than you are to the federal government.
I know. It's only going to get worse.
And it's not for us. It's for the retirees now. So I don't know. There's just a lot of broken things that we all need to discuss. But when people don't know the information because they keep all of our heads in the sand. So I think it's important for us to keep sharing these stories so that we can all rally and maybe someone can come along with a lot of answers and then all of us can kind of help and we'll kind of see what happens. But it's worth fighting for.
100%.
So I remember what it was like growing up in my early 20s. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I think there's, I think there will be a better day. I think we'll get out of this funk. What I kind of foresee happening, and I know you mentioned it, like the 23-year-old kid won't pick up and move, but at the same time, I'm Italian. My wife is 100% Italian as well. All of our grandparents on both sides all came from Italy, right? It was the Great Depression. There was no possibility or opportunity there. And there, honestly, in some of those parts, there still isn't, right? Almost 100 years later. They basically all live off the government if they stayed. But otherwise, these people all came to America. My grandparents literally came with $8 in their pocket. My grandfather worked, what did he exactly do? He was like a building inspector. And my grandmother was like a secretary at Brooklyn College. They settled in Brooklyn. They bought a house on the water in Brooklyn. Like you're talking like today, like we don't own it as a family. I wish we did. We'd probably be a lot more comfortable. But I think they sold it back in the 2000s. But like you're talking about today would be like 10 or $15 million. Like a beautiful house on the water in Brooklyn. I think people are going to do like that, whether it's reverse immigration. Like I know a lot of people want to go back to Europe, go to Asia, go to these lower cost of living countries. But I also think just people are going to say like, hey, I know I wanted to live in New Jersey, but I'm going to go live in Pennsylvania. Hey, I wanted to live in this area of Florida. I wanted to live in, Palm Beach, but I'm going to go live in Orlando. Like I'm going to go maybe 2 or 3 hours away. Nothing like crazy. But like I look at parts of Pennsylvania, you could still get a decent house for 350, 400,000 and be 2 or 3 hours from your family. Like it's not ideal by any means, but I think as Gen Z gets to their late 30s, as they're doing that, or late 20s into their 30s and start getting those family forming years, that's when I think you're going to start to see like more of that spread. Because right now they're comfortable. Yeah. They're in their, here in New Jersey, they're up in Hoboken, they're in Jersey City. They're paying $4,500 a month in rent, which they can afford because they have bigger salaries living in Manhattan. But I think eventually, because that doesn't get you a mortgage anymore, where in most of New Jersey, it's going to be, hey, we're going to go live this other place, commute back 1 or 2 days, and it's not going to be pretty for a while. But that's my hope for people, is that they don't give up on buying a home. They don't give up on home ownership, because the wealth it can bring you changes your life. And having a paid off home when you go to retire, whether you need the money, you could do a reverse mortgage. That's what, most boomers and Gen X are probably going to end up having to do, to be realistic. But it gives you opportunity. And it's sad to think about an entire generation, if we say any like 20 to 28-year-old right now that has a tough time getting into the housing market, what their retirement is going to look like when they get 65, 70 years old, if they've never, as most of a generation has never owned a home.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Well, yeah, because the monthly, I even think of my parents, they live in Ohio and their property tax and homeowner insurance is $275 a month.
Yeah.
If they and I think it would rent for $1,800 now, or a mortgage would be $1,800 to $2,000. That would mess up their whole retirement.
Yeah.
And
it'd be crippling.
But I love that, dude. I think you're right. I think migration, it's just a little premature, so people are still going to be resistant. But you're right, though, picking up and moving. Even like I said, my hometown in Ashtabula, or even some places in Ohio, my buddy just bought a house for $215,000. It's on a half acre. and his payment out the door is $1,800. I think he
Yeah.
makes about 50,000 a year and qualified. And so people might have to migrate, and maybe places like Orlando, Jersey, New York, LA are going to keep, the cities are going to keep going up, but maybe people will start flooding to middle America a little, and then they'll build those cities up, and then the value will go up like it happened in Austin or Orlando.
Yeah.
So maybe that's going to be the future, but there is options. So it's like, call out the problem, be personally responsible and do what we can, but then also keep people accountable who are in office, because we can't just let people just take away with the American dream, and we're the last generation to remember it.
Yeah. I just put up a video probably a couple of weeks ago about there was a house that went 400,000 over asking in northern New Jersey, and I said, and someone was like, "Well, what is the solution?" I said, "Well, the solution's simple. This town is really desirable. Everyone wants to, which people were arguing whether it was or not, but take this X town, Maplewood. You need to take Maplewood and recreate it in Southwest Jersey where there's no one. Take a nice downtown, get a railway to Philadelphia that can connect express to Manhattan, an hour and a half, an hour 45. Go take it, build it somewhere else, and young people will flock there." Like, one of my big dreams is to start developing real estate like that for younger people, right? Like,
Dude,
go take, a plot of land, almost like Walt Disney did with Disney World, right? Like, go into not necessarily the middle of nowhere, but like make it convenient, but go and build a main street with some great coffee shops, a bookshop, a toy shop, great parks, few restaurants, and then some houses around it. And then boom, you're going to start to solve this issue. The issue is, for many people, it's a lot of the zoning, right? Like, at least here in New Jersey, like, I know down in Florida, we're building, anywhere and everywhere, but
yeah.
here in New Jersey, like, you can't build on anything other than 2 acres. So who's going to build a $350,000 house, right? A small 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath house on a slab when you have to build for 2 acres, right? You need to change. The zoning needs to change. That's a little bit of a difference between New Jersey and Florida. You need to be able to build that small house, 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square foot starter home, and also boomer downsizer home on, I don't know, a little less than quarter of an acre. Nothing crazy, but they don't allow it. That's the problem, at least here.
Yeah, dude, what you said though is exactly what I would be so inspired to do, and then document the process. This is another thing, like Mr. Beast does this well.
100%.
Like, if we were to do that and you built it and you showed how much it cost, what we're doing, and that it worked, then you can go to the federal government and be like, we did this for X amount of dollars. Look what you guys could do and duplicate this around the country. But start actually, that's why I always say with like people who are super, super wealthy, like, why aren't they doing it? Wouldn't it be just a fun project and then document the whole thing, put it on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, get people involved?
Yeah.
I just think it'd be great. Even like a community garden.
Yeah.
Bringing back being able to grow your own food. Like, there's just so many things we can do. So though there's problems, I am optimistic. I think we've got everything at our fingertips, but we're just going through a weird transition right now.
Yeah, I see us almost as like, depending how old your grandparents are or were, I almost see us as our grandparents, like greatest gen almost, where they remade America after World War II. I think millennials and Gen Z are going to have to do the same. Like, there was massive issues in college debt, housing prices, like all this stuff is a mess. Medicare, Social Security, and we're gonna have to kind of revamp everything for the future generations. And hopefully there's more people like you and I that want to do it. So maybe after this we'll chat about our community that we can build out together.
Dude, absolutely.
That's honestly one of my biggest things at this point now. Again, as a real estate broker, has been doing 16 years, sees the issues that's out there. Getting a new listing, I just closed a listing for 1.1 million that came directly from TikTok. Yes, it's exciting. I love it. But like, that doesn't like get me out of the bed in the morning to go, even if it is a $30,000 check, like it doesn't make the difference anymore. Doing this type stuff does, and creating change. So it's cool to see. So 2 more questions for you. And I know we're well over now. Again, I appreciate the time. You have to start from zero, wipe out all your followers. Literally every single follower, every single platform. You wipe it all out. What does Freddie Smith do?
I would just do the same thing I'm doing, just start from scratch. I would download TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and I would make 1 video a day and post and interact and just rebuild from the beginning.
It's a great answer.
That's
I mean, what anyone who's great at this would say, like, right? Like, you would do the exact same thing. And that shows, and that's why I was excited to have you on, because there are top creators with like high production, all this stuff, and they'd be like, well, I'd have to figure out how to pay for all this, right? But you would you would do the exact same thing you're doing now. And I bet you'd probably, you'd probably get pretty close to where you are within a year, right? That's how exponential this stuff is. Like if you stop your accounts now, created a new one, I bet you'd be right where you were within, maybe even sooner, but probably realistically within a year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the system's in place, man. The algorithm with the interest graph just really helps right now. So just consistency and building.
Absolutely. Final question for you. I always love asking any guest this. You get to meet 10-year-old Freddie. You get to meet him. I'm guessing you grew up in Ohio. You get to meet him on the playground. You sit next to him. What do you tell that 10-year-old kid?
I would tell him that I learned this later in life, which would have helped me because it's a cliche saying, but I've never felt more real in all my life. Enjoy the process. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. So anytime you're going through a challenge, just know that it's making you better. And reaching a goal doesn't create happiness. It's in the daily discipline of growing and enjoying the journey is where the happiness is. Because anytime you hit a goal, young man, you're going to reach for the next goal and reach for the next goal. But when you actually start spending your time with people that you love and working on things you love, then every day you can experience happiness.
I love that. That's awesome. I know sometimes it's a hard question to answer, and it's sometimes emotional. But yeah, that's a great answer. And yeah, man, this is a great conversation. I appreciate all the time you've given to hopping on to Getting Real. And where can people find you?
Yeah, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Freddie Smith, and you'll be able to find me on there. And we'll keep sharing the message.
Absolutely, appreciate it, Freddie.
All right, thanks, dude. I really appreciate the convo.
Thank you.